After the play, unsportsmanlike conduct on all players from both teams.
The Egg Bowl, biggest game in Mississippi.
After further review, the pass was backwards.
Nothing else matters.
Fans now throwing stuff on the field.
When you win the game, everybody pats you in the back.
And Walton is going to go all the way.
When you lose the game,
a sportsmanlike conduct foul, 8 on the offense.
They want to fire you.
The kick is up, and it is no good!
About 2 hours ago, Ole Miss released a statement confirming they have fired head coach Matt Luke.
There's a hatred between Ole Miss and Mississippi State that only one can understand when you're in that state.
Griffin, one of the fastest players in the SEC.
Egg Bowl is the game. I vividly remember the cowbells, physicality. The fights.
A.J. Brown now, he threw a punch. And now Corral, the freshman, he's got his hand in the face mask.
We're sitting on the bus. Their fans are climbing over my bus, ringing the cowbells. Me and my wife, my team, are sitting on the bus and they're shaking the bus. Ogeron, Ogeron, you stay, Ogeron. And I'm waiting for the policeman to come. Nobody's around, and all I'm hearing is damn cowbells. Man, I went home that night, I heard those cowbells in my sleep. I woke up, I was in a dead sweat, just seeing those guys shaking those cowbells in my face. So I remember that game.
The Egg Bowl, the annual showdown between Ole Miss and Mississippi State. One of the oldest and most intense rivalries in all of college football. A game that has seen drama, controversy, and historical memorable moments. A game that divides an entire state and sparks heated debates. This game means everything to the fans of both teams, and honestly, the rivalry alone has resulted in so many people getting fired, I've lost count at this point. But how did this rivalry start? And why is it called the Egg Bowl? Well, the first game between Ole Miss and Mississippi State, then known as Mississippi A&M, was played in 1901. Since then, the two teams have met 120 times, with Ole Miss leading the series 65, 46, and 6. The rivalry became so heated that in 1926, a brawl broke out on the field after Ole Miss snapped Mississippi State's 13-game winning streak. To prevent future violence, the Golden Egg Trophy was introduced in 1927. The trophy is a large golden football-shaped egg that the winning team gets to keep until the next game, and has been given out ever since. With this being the first video for this channel, I really wanted to take some time to talk about this rivalry and the importance of it, but it would be nearly impossible for me to cover every single game. So I've decided to talk about some of the most strange games, some of those really weird games that stick out to you in the back of your mind. Please go away. All right, now that we got that out of the way, the Egg Bowl definitely has produced some of the most memorable moments in football history for me, and I feel like it'd be a disservice if I didn't talk about as many as I could today. And yes, Mississippi State, I'll include some for you guys as well. You guys get it this one time, okay? We're not friends. No, I'm just kidding. We're not friends.
Downtrodden state considered ripped off is left to ponder the whys and hows of the bizarrest finish in Egg Bowl history, not to mention who will coach the 84 Dogs, a decision left solely in the hands of Emory Bellard.
November 19th, 1983 was a really windy day. No, seriously, I mean really windy. This is back when the rivalry was played in Jackson, Mississippi. This might sound weird at first, until you realize the Egg Bowl's been held at Oxford, Starkville, Jackson, Columbus, Tupelo, Clarksdale, and Greenwood. I can't even point at Greenwood on the map. No offense, of course. Anyways, Mississippi State entered the game with a 3-7 record, while Ole Miss was 5-5. If Ole Miss won one more game, they would be bowl eligible and most likely would be invited to play a bowl game. The Bulldogs had won the last meeting and were definitely looking to make it 2 years in a row. And after a terrific start from Mississippi State, it seemed like they might.
Then John Bond himself dives over, breaking the plane and scoring for the Bulldogs. And finally, number 33, Henry Kuntz into the end zone, touchdown Mississippi State.
The Rebels found themselves down 17-0 before the half was over. It was clear that if they were going to win this game, they needed a major turn of momentum. And so this happened.
Rebels with a full rush. Timmy Moffitt back to receive with no blockers. Moffitt cuts left, then sidesteps 10 Mississippi State players, gets a block on the last one, and scores. A 56-yard return for Timmy Moffitt puts the Rebels on the boards and sparks Ole Miss.
Eventually, State would score 6 more unanswered points on the Rebels and extend their lead 23-7.
And the Bulldogs take a 23-7 lead. Things are looking grim on the Rebel sidelines. Another unusual play in this game.
Actually, the ending of this game isn't the only strange thing that happens here. Take a look at this play, for instance. This play had no chance.
Kelly Powell will take the snap and hand to Arthur Humphrey. Humphrey has the ball knocked loose. It bounces right up into the arms of Kelly Powell, who runs around the right side for the touchdown.
After a scoop and score and a touchdown, Ole Miss found themselves back in the game 21-23 against Mississippi State. The dream was back alive. All Ole Miss had to do was win this game, and they would go to a bowl game for the first time in 11 years and have their first winning season in 6 years. Eventually, Ole Miss would make a field goal and take the lead 24-23. However, these numbers haunt State fans for a reason.
Ole Miss was winning by 1 point, but State was in field goal position and had what appeared to be an easy chance to regain the lead and win the game with a simple 27-yard kick. Freshman kicker Hotty Toddy did what he had.
With State marching down the field, they had a real shot at taking this game back away from Ole Miss with 1 field goal. You remember how I said it was windy, though? That's going to become very important here in a second.
26-yard field goal. His kick goes straight up and straight down.
No, seriously, though, like, what the hell was that?
26-yard field goal. His kick goes straight up and straight down.
That's gonna go quack. It go quack. This shit'll go moo.
Stopped by a mighty gust of wind, the ball seemed to spin as if on a pinwheel. No good. Billy Brewer had called timeout prior to the kick. Was it to ice Cosby or to wait for the gust of wind?
Any of you, like, math people out there, I need somebody in the comments. Just do the math. And what is the probability of this happening? Like, that's absolutely straight up and straight down. Like, there's no way around it. That's literally straight up and straight down. And that's a football. That's a football. That's not like a ping pong ball or something small like that. That's a football. Anyways, obviously, with 24 seconds left, Ole Miss went on to win the game and was invited shortly after to play in the Independence Bowl against Air Force, which they won. Yeah. And were recognized eventually as co-division national champions. Fuck it, leave me alone. Either way you look at it, this clip is absolutely going to be replayed until the end of history because, I mean, look at it. It defies the laws of physics.
It's something about you, girl, that just makes my head wanna twirl. Oh, you got me want to tell all them other girls there's nothing else better on this world.
Disappointed, especially for our seniors. I was disappointed. That's not who he is. Elijah's a good kid, and he got caught up in the moment.
To say from 2016 to 2019 for Ole Miss was very rough would be a massive understatement. Mind you, the Piss and Miss took place in 2019, only 3 years after Ole Miss destroyed Oklahoma State in the Sugar Bowl, beat Nick Saban's Alabama in back-to-back years, and landed some of the best recruiting classes in Ole Miss history. That's how hard this fall-off is, y'all. In 2017, former offensive line coach, then interim head coach, Matt Luke was hired in the place of Coach Hugh Freeze, and... Hey, Ole Miss historian, why was Coach Freeze fired? Well, you see, blah, 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 blah. We all know this story by now. I want to take a second to talk about just how much of a Matt Luke fan I am, given he was there for us through some of the darker times in our program's history and inherited the helm with so many problems that he probably didn't even know where to start. But I also want to just say, Matt Luke is also just a great guy. I had a chance to meet him in 2014 at the Ole Miss football camp, and he was just one of the nicest people I'd ever talked to in my life. So Coach Luke, if you're watching this, I hope you realize you're loved here in Oxford.
They have an opportunity to end Mississippi State's bowl hopes tonight.
Gee, that sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it? Didn't we just talk about this exact same scenario with Ole Miss needing one more win to become bowl eligible? Oh yeah, we absolutely did. This actually isn't as uncommon as you would expect it to be. Ole Miss and Mississippi State often do this for some reason. As a matter of fact, it just happened again. Mississippi State was 5-6 this past season, needing one more win to be bowl eligible. That's crazy. Anyway, Ole Miss at this point entered the game at 4-7. They weren't really looking to do anything other than upset Mississippi State at this game and have some much needed momentum for 2020. And oh god, they had no idea. So as I mentioned before, Mississippi State was playing for a bowl game, and they also had a bowl streak going on. Ole Miss wanted nothing more than to upset Mississippi State here, but they weren't going to make it easy on them.
High drama in Starkville. Here comes the pressure. Corral towards the goal line. It is caught. It is a touchdown. Elijah Moore. And they're an extra point away from tying the game. And penalty markers get thrown after the play.
Big time extra point here. If this is excessive celebration.
A sportsmanlike conduct foul. 8 on the offense. That penalty will be enforced 15 yards on the kickoff.
Now everybody on the Mississippi State coaching staff here is saying, no, right now we want it.
So this is going to be an extended extra point try because of the excessive celebration penalty against Ole Miss. So it comes down to the foot of Luke Logan, the junior from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, a 35-yard extra point to tie the game. The kick is up, and it is no good!
Seriously, what's up with the Egg Bowl and these weird field goal situations? And after the game during the press conference, head coach Matt Luke admitted that he had considered going for 2 before the penalty.
Yeah, it was a thought for sure to go for it. We had come to the conclusion to go ahead and kick it and go to overtime. We felt like if we got into overtime, we'd be in good shape.
After the game, of course, Elijah Moore was under harsh scrutiny and criticism from the Ole Miss Rebel fan base and from college football fans in general, saying it was tasteless. But I also want to remind you guys, obviously this act isn't indicative of Elijah Moore's character. He was obviously just emotional in a very, very heated rivalry. I mean, this rivalry is one of the most hateful in college football history, in my opinion. But because of the incidental piss before the other incidental field goal miss, this event has been nicknamed the Piss and Miss.
Yeah, don't you mean old piss? It's called because it's old Miss and it rhymes with piss. Oh God, I'm lonely.
Anyways, subsequently to the loss, Coach Matt Luke was fired, unfortunately. Love Matt Luke. But it did result in us getting Lane Kiffin, so some refer to this as a strange butterfly effect. Ole Miss is arguably seeing some of its most successful years since Johnny Vaught. So that leaves one question. If Elijah Moore didn't pee in the end zone, what happens? There really is nothing like some good old classic Southern football. I just love reminiscing about games like Ole Miss versus LSU 1997, or maybe Ole Miss versus Alabama 2014, or maybe even Ole Miss versus Memphis High School 1911. What the f***? Anyways, this story takes place a very long time ago, and the game was completely different back then, very different for what it is now. This game was only played 5 years after the first forward pass was caught in Egg Bowl history. On top of that, you know how the SEC looks now. Imagine if it looked like this. I mean, seriously, guys, do you even recognize half of the... Hold up, wait a second. No. Anyways, this game took place on Thanksgiving of 1911 at the Jackson Fairgrounds. The game being played on Thanksgiving was still pretty new to people, and many people throughout the years had complained that the main bleachers were absolutely terrible for seating. Reported by many people, these seats were supposedly just horrendous to view the game from. So naturally, people decided to flock towards a smaller sideline bleacher that was only built a few days prior to this game. And they had to pay 25 cents extra, but it was definitely worth it for the better view. Keep the only made a few days prior thing in mind. In the world of college football, it is not unusual to see the fans going nuts when the game starts. As a matter of fact, I'll go out on a limb here and say it's probably much more rare to see the opposite. So naturally, people started to make commotion and get excited for the game, which was about to start. And during all of this, 1,500 people were trying to find seats amongst everybody with all this going on. On the sideline bleachers, y'all. And with all this going on, I mean, what do you think happened? It completely collapsed. And what did Ole Miss and Mississippi State do? Play the game. Yep.
Damn. That's crazy.
Thankfully, everybody survived this, but 60 people were left injured. And some of these injuries were really bad, including William Hemingway having his entire ankle crushed by the crash. Afterwards, people began to have questions. Why was a structure like this built if it couldn't support 2,000 people like they said it could? Who built the structure? Why was the structure built? This became even more confusing once the public was made aware that nobody even had a permit to build there. Eventually it came to light that John McCall, the head captain for the Ole Miss football team from the year prior, and he was in his first year as president for the Intercollegiate Athletic Association. Geez, try saying that 3 times fast. Was working with both universities to construct a bleacher for more money, essentially. This, of course, led to a bunch of backlash between the public and the institutions themselves, but ultimately nobody really took blame for what happened, and it's still unclear to this day why those bleachers fell in 1911. Oh yeah, Mississippi State won.
Mississippi State and the Ole Miss Rebels. It's senior day in Starkville. Both of these teams are bowl eligible, but both believe they have to win today to make sure they go into postseason play.
If there was a team in Ole Miss history that I say had a lot of potential that people seem to overlook, it's the 1997 Ole Miss Rebels football team. This is also one of the most bipolar Ole Miss football teams that I think I've ever seen. I mean, let's look at this. They won their first 2 games, then lost to Auburn by 10 points, won against Vanderbilt, lost to Tennessee, then won against number 8 LSU at LSU. All to turn around and lose the next week at home to a 4-7 Alabama team. How does that happen? Well, to understand, you have to take a look at Mr. Pinebox's last 2 seasons with Ole Miss. And if you don't get that joke, then don't worry, I'm going to do a video about that coming soon. In 1995, Ole Miss was banned from all television whatsoever because of severe NCAA violations that were handed to them in November of 1994. The next year, Ole Miss was still kind of reeling, and the year after that, they were a lot better, but very inconsistent to say the least. On top of this, with Ole Miss struggling historically against Alabama, this kind of just adds up to, well, that happening. Anyways, hope you guys don't mind me going into detail about that. Anyway, Mississippi State had seen success this season as well. I mean, take a look at this. This is even more up and down than we were. Mississippi State was led by head coach Jackie Sherrill, and oh my god, I have never seen 2 parties hate each other more than Ole Miss and Jackie Sherrill did. To give you an idea, Jackie Sherrill would never call Ole Miss, Ole Miss. He would only call us Mississippi. Coach Billy Brewer once said that Jackie Sherrill was a habitual liar, and Jackie Sherrill responded by saying, Billy Brewer doesn't know the meaning of the word habitual. Damn. And this is really only the tip of the iceberg with Jackie Sherrill. There's probably a lot more people could say regarding him. That's just not coming to my mind right now. But in my opinion, love him or hate him, he definitely is a legend in this rivalry. Even though we probably wanted to do this to him.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Kessling along with Dave Rowe. Welcome to the Egg Bowl. This is a souped-up, hard-charging series that's got plenty of emotions. Unfortunately, those emotions spilled over onto the field before the game.
Well, they certainly did, Bob. There's no one that enjoys rivalries more than I do, but this was uncalled for. It was just a terrible scene about an hour or so before the game started. There were altercations all across the field, and there was probably 80 players that were involved in this situation. You can see, though, just turmoil. And the coaches started to try to get them apart. The officials were doing the best that they could, but it was completely from sideline to sideline.
If you're anything like me, you're wondering, how the heck did this happen? What started this? Well, I actually did some research and found an article published by the Clarion Ledger that talks to the players that were in this. According to Deuce McAllister, Robert Reed got into an argument with one of the defensive backs on the Mississippi State team, and it all kind of just went downhill from there. You see, both teams were really eager to get themselves into a bowl game, and even though Mississippi State was number 22 in the nation, that didn't really do anything. Whoever lost this game was most likely not going to a bowl game because there were only 20 back then. Both teams were wanting to go to a bowl game for the first time in a while. Ole Miss hadn't been since 1992, and this would make 3 years if Mississippi State didn't get in. If you thought the drama stopped there, just remember, there's another part of this that's called the call.
You've got to the end zone. You've got a timeout. You can stop the clock. And that really helps that they have stayed that timeout.
3 wide receivers in. First down. They can get a first down if they can get it inside the 1. Patridge looking into the end zone. Touchdown! Second touchdown of the day. Makes it a 1-point game.
Boy, and Tim Nelson had pressure from the outside. He was one step from getting Patridge. One step from getting Patridge. I think you go for 2 points in this situation.
Stuart Palmy Somerville going to roll the dice and go for the win. His team down 14-13.
Some of you might be asking yourselves, what's so strange about that? He just went for 2 and got it. Well, you see, back then, video replay wasn't a thing. So if a touchdown was called on the field, that was pretty much it. There's 2 reasons I like to call this the brawling call. I don't actually know if anybody else calls it that, but that's what I'm calling it. 1, the obvious gutsy call by Tupperware to go for 2 at the end of the game at your opponent's home field. And 2, because Corey Peterson now openly admits that this should not have counted and he trapped the ball, making it a missed call on the officials' side. After a super clutch interception by Tim Strickland, Ole Miss would get the ball back, down it with 3 seconds left, and win the game. Ole Miss would go to their first bowl game since 1992 to the Motor City Bowl and beat Marshall 34-31, whereas Mississippi State failed to make a bowl game for the 3rd year in a row, all defeated by a successful 2-point conversion attempt that reportedly was never really successful to begin with. I had a lot of fun making this video, and quite honestly, I learned quite a bit researching these games. I know I'm leaving out some big things like the 1999 pick and kick and the stand from 1993, but I want to make another part to this. Trying to compile all the crazy stuff into one video is just honestly impossible, and does just a massive disservice to my favorite college football rivalry of all time. Although I'm admittedly biased. There really just won't be anything like the Egg Bowl to me ever. So many historical memories, so many crazy occurrences, and so much vitriol between Mississippi State and Ole Miss just makes it impossible for me to not be invested in. With this being said, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Keep an eye out for part 2. Hotty Toddy, and always,